go. Thank you, Margaret. If you don't wish to be recorded, you are welcome to turn off your camera as well as edit your name, your username in the Zoom, like for Zoom. So I'll give you an opportunity to do that now. So before we open the space together, I'd like to introduce you to our event support team. For tech support, we have Margaret Zhu, Jocelyn Whalen, and Stephanie Curtin, who will be standing by. So if you have any rising tech concerns, just send them a message. So either Jocelyn or Stephanie in the chat can help you. And then for emotional support, we have Katie McCallum from KSAC. She is available for folks to access emotional support at any time during the event. So if you send a direct message to Margaret, Margaret can set you up in a private breakout room with Katie. As well, folks can also access the 24/7 KSAC support line anytime during or after the event. And details, I believe, have been posted in the chat. If not, they will be popping in there soon. And I believe the closed captioning has been enabled. So you can choose to turn this feature off or on at your own discretion, but if you are having difficulties toggling this feature as needed, do reach out to our tech team for direction. So I'll just give the support team a moment to say hi in the chat, that way folks can identify them. So again, that would be Margaret, Jocelyn, Stephanie, and Katie. So I haven't introduced myself yet as your MC for this evening. So let me start by saying, ako ay si Zarina Solano Garcia. My pronouns are she and her. My mother is Revelina Rudora Santa Lucia Solano Garcia from Ibahaya Clan, Panay Island. My father is Alan Jose Silva Garcia from Ibahaya Clan, Panay Island. My family are Ibahanon from the Philippines, but I was born and raised where the alder trees grow in Wadobikong, Ontario, on Treaty 13, the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. I am blessed to live by the bank of the Otonabee River here at the end of the rapids in Nogojiwanong, Peterborough. And I invite you to join me in acknowledging that we are virtually gathered here on Williams Treaty 20, the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa and Nishinabeg, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We honor this land, our collective history, and our responsibilities to the Williams Treaties and Treaty 20. May we offer gratitude to First Peoples for their care for and teachings about the earth and all our creations. And may we honor those teachings, truth, and reconciliation. So in my introduction, I bring the names of my parents and our native home into this space, as well as the place of my birth and the place I'm currently living. And I do this because that is how my people acknowledge the lineage and community that claim us, and also how we acknowledge our land relations. So this is how we arrive to a space, to be in relation with our neighbors and global family. Now, in speaking to being in relation with one another, today our gathering is around the theme of advancing gender equality in Nogojiwanong, Peterborough, and to guide our exploration of local and global perspectives for leaving no one behind. We have an incredible lineup of guest speakers I'm so excited to hear from, performers, panelists, and we're all gathered here today for the celebration of International Women's Day. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Janet Mchugh, who will start us off in a good way with an opening drum. So Janet, whenever you're ready, take it away.
hey, way hey, way hey, hey, oh.
Thank you, Janet, for opening our space and our hearts in such a beautiful way with your sacred drum medicine. Next, I am honored to open the floor to Chief Lori Carr of Hiawatha First Nation for our International Women's Day opening welcome.
Nebo jo wawash kesh dodem megazekwe dishnakas, Lori Shaganash Noswin, Michisagi Anishinaabe and Dao. Good evening, everyone. My English name is Lori. My Indigenous name is Eagle Woman, and I'm from the Hoof Clan. And I'm chief of our community of Hiawatha First Nation, and very honored to be here tonight. And I would like to first say Miigwetch to for the drum and the song and opening us up in a good way, and for our elder who will be closing, and to anyone who has medicines in the room. And I pay honor to those traditional medicines and those sacred items that we have. And to say thank you, Miigwetch, for the invitation to provide an opening remarks and a welcome to the International Women's Day event. And I always look forward to, of course, hopefully next year attending in person, but always look forward to being here and welcoming everyone to the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa peoples. And as we talk about our event, the event, and the theme of the event, advancing gender equity in Peterborough local and global perspectives for leaving no one behind. And when I think of gender equity in First Nations peoples, there's no equality, there's no social justice or justice in general, but there are definitely stereotypes, prejudices, and discrimination. And with that, so we as Indigenous women know we're not alone. And so how do we end this so everyone has equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities? And part of that is we must acknowledge the voices and work of our women, girls, and two-spirited who walked before us and throughout decades to help make change. We must recognize their lived experiences, the many identities, and what has caused harm in their lives, and raise each other up and lend our voices to help make change. We must help restore women's, girls, and two-spirited roles in the family units and communities. We are the leaders of our families and communities, and we must not continue to direct any type of investments to organizations or institutions that have not built any approaches through listening to the voices of women, girls, and our two-spirited peoples. And most importantly, we must work together to build our supports and solutions to address women's issues and gender-based violence while we restore our balance and take up our roles and responsibilities in our families and communities. And with that, by working together with supporting each other and the work that's already been done and the work that we will continue to do, we will see that when we talk about our 7 generations ahead, they won't have as much work to do. And hopefully they will not know the harms that have happened, but they can live that good life that Creator intended for us. So with that, I would like to say Miigwetch. I wish you a wonderful event. I'm sorry I can't stay on. I actually have to attend another event here in Hiawatha that's also being done virtually. But I just wanted to make sure to say hello, to welcome you to the territory, and wish you a wonderful evening and happy International Women's Day. It's an honor to be here and share a little bit of time with you, a little bit of space with you. Miigwetch.
Thank you so much, Chief Carr, for your thoughtful and powerful words and wisdom to open up the space for us in a really good way. So next, I'm pleased to welcome Councillor Kemi Akapo to the virtual stage with greetings from the city and opening remarks.
Thank you so much. Hello, good evening. Happy International Women's Day. My name is Oluwafikemi Akapo. I am here representing the city of Peterborough, but also just here as a grateful resident of Nogojiwanong, Peterborough. Thank you so much for asking me to join tonight and to share some of my thoughts and reflections. And a big thank you, Miigwetch, to KWIC and KSAC, who consistently, year after year after year, provide us with a space in which we can gather as community to commemorate this day. Just full transparency, I work for one of the organizations that also sponsored the event. I'm not here representing them, but I hope to do them proud as well. If you saw the promotional video earlier for this event, you would have seen greetings from Councillor Kim Zippel, and she also read the official declaration, so I won't be restating that. But I also do bring greetings from the rest of City Council in the city, especially from Councillors Parnell, myself, and of course from our Mayor, Diane Therrien. So I've just been asked to share a couple of words and reflect on this theme about advancing gender equality and leaving no one behind. Earlier today, I tweeted out, that I'm here for International Women's Day celebrations that are inclusive, diverse, and intersectional. And I think that really does encapsulate how I feel about not leaving anyone behind. Because if we say we're truly working towards gender equity and gender equality, if we're doing that without our trans sisters, we're leaving people behind. If we're doing that and not creating spaces that are accessible, we're leaving our disabled folks behind. If we're doing that without thinking about the different intersectionalities that people come with, we're leaving people behind. So I really do think that in order to really advance that work, we really do need to, in anything that we're doing, be intentional about the way we're doing it, and really do try to have a 360 view before we move forward. And that's something that I try to do in my work as a counselor. I don't know how many of you read our city council reports, but they all have the same format. So they always start with, the staff recommendation, the financial implications, and then the background information. And something that myself and Councillor Zippel have been working towards is changing the nature of that staff report. So it not just only includes financial implications, but what about all the other implications? How are the recommendations in this report going to affect people who live in poverty? How are they going to affect landowners versus people who rent? How will they affect people of various sexual orientations and people with all that come with all of their identities? That's something that I believe that needs to be done in a very intentional and deliberate manner, and not just something that's, it's like, well, as a counselor, that is your role to consider all of those. And the other aspect of leaving no one behind is bringing people along with you, pulling people up alongside with you, and passing on the baton, which is something I really, truly believe in. Part of the reason I am where I am today, I have to give thanks, I give thanks to lots of people, and, yes, I did do the hard work, but I had one conversation that really changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm so glad that that person is here with us tonight. It's Miriam Monsep. I think we all know who she is. And we were talking one day, and I don't know why, but she mentioned, have you ever thought about applying to sit on the board of an organization. And I won't mention the organization because I didn't give them a heads up, but I'm sure they would be fine with it. And I had never thought about sitting on a board before. I thought sitting on boards was meant for, old white men. And I was not old, I was not white, and I'm not a man. So I thought that wasn't meant for me, or that was something that I would do, at the later stage of my life. But, she encouraged me to do that. I applied for the board and I was successful on getting on there. And really the learnings that I learned from my time on that board, the opportunities that opened up to me really were instrumental in shaping who I am today. And I thank Miriam for that. And I always try to remember that when I'm in spaces with other people, always encouraging other people to come alongside me, bringing people alongside me, because I know that we cannot do this work alone. And the work is better when we do it with other people. So thank you again for having me tonight. And I look forward to the rest of this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Kemi. Oh, such heartfelt greetings and what a powerful message. Yeah, you mentioned so much really to reflect on as a community, and I genuinely hope that everyone here today, especially those who are in Peterborough, can take away a lot from that resonates with them. So next, actually, you know what? You mentioned the International Women's Day Proclamation, and Shaylin Wabagijig, I believe, has a copy of that. So Margaret, if it's okay with you to spotlight Shaylin for a moment to show us the proclamation, I'd like to do that. Amazing. So just a little bit of a background on this. Councillor Zippel, Kim Zippel, did a live recording with KSAC, Lucas, and Jocelyn yesterday to read this proclamation for International Women's Day, dated March 8th, 2022. Thank you so much. All right, so next we will be sharing a video that MP Michelle Ferrari has shared from her office. She was unable to join us live, but I'm sure that she is with us here in spirit. So Margaret, whenever you're ready to share the video, I'll hand it over to you.
The country, women are building a stronger, better Canada. But women are still underrepresented in politics and leadership positions. Too often, young women and girls aren't seeing the role models that would inspire them to achieve their dreams. That needs to change. We need to break down those barriers that discourage women from full participation. There are thousands of strong women who are doing incredible things across our country. In Parliament, women from all backgrounds are putting forward their vision and adding their voices to critical debates. My colleagues and I are working each and every day to make sure women from all walks of life are represented in the House of Commons. Conservatives won't stop advocating for equality for women and girls around the world, but it doesn't stop with us. Every woman and girl has the potential to achieve great things. Women should never be intimidated because of their gender. They should be mentored. They should be empowered. The amazing women who have gone ahead should be recognized, because if you can see it, you can be it. Happy International Women's Day.
Thanks so much, Margaret. All right, so next we will be hearing from Jennifer Debut from the Community Foundation of Greater Peterborough to share the Vital Signs Report. So Jennifer, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. As I've been listening to you, I've been reflecting that sometimes the work of advancing gender equality is lonely work. So thank you all for coming and for expressing your solidarity with one another despite everything going on in the world. Just before COVID came along, the Community Foundation worked with 9 local charities to make a series of grants to support the work advancing gender equality these organizations were doing here in Peterborough. And it was an amazing opportunity and a huge privilege for me to be able to sit around the table with 9 amazing women and to share ideas and hear their dreams. And then together, we figured out how to allocate the funds to help them do their work. And that launched a whole change in how we do our granting at the Community Foundation. It all started there. Last year, KWIC received another grant to explore the SDG 5, gender equality, and they hosted a series of conversations and workshops, and I'm sure many of you were part of those conversations, where lots of voices got to share their experiences and reflections. And there'll be a full report coming at the end of the month, which I'm really excited to read. But in the meantime, the Community Foundation has been working alongside KWIC on another collaboration. And I would like to thank Shaylin in particular for all her work and her patience. So Miigwetch, Shaylin. Together, we've created a new vital signs report. And this vital signs report is focused entirely on gender equality. It shares some of the findings of the KWIC workshops and surveys, and it highlights what some of the other Fund for Gender Equality grant recipients have been doing here in Peterborough. And it points out some of the ways in which the gender divide has been exacerbated over the course of the pandemic. It's not going to be earth-shattering news to most of you looking at the report, but we hope the vital focus on gender equality encourages and uplifts the individuals and organizations who are doing this work to advance gender equality. And we hope that you find it useful for starting conversations with people in your network, your family and friends, just to shine a spotlight on gender equality after International Women's Day. The Community Foundation is all about bringing people who care about the community and who have the capacity to give, and that could mean $10 or $10,000, and bringing them together with the causes and organizations who are doing the work. And I'm delighted to share that one such donor has recently come forward to help us launch a new fund, especially to promote women's leadership initiatives locally. So we want to design this fund so it has as much impact as possible. We have a lot of questions that need answering, like what does feminist leadership even look like? We want to hear from people with ideas and enthusiasm, so that's probably you. And as we build this fund, we'd like you to be part of that conversation. So please reach out to me if you would like to learn more about it. I'll put my email address in the chat. But for now, I'm going to sit back and enjoy the rest of the evening. I thank KWIC and KSAC very much for hosting this event and holding this space for all of us. And thank you everybody for caring.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you to everyone involved in putting together Peterborough's Vital Signs Report. I had an opportunity to take a look at the website, and I think you are doing such a great job in the community. And I'm sure we are all looking forward to how this knowledge will be used to support our community in a good way. So next, we will begin our panel session, which will be moderated by Yvonne Lai, who will introduce our panelists for the evening. So I'll pass the virtual mic to you, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Serena. Welcome everyone to the panel presentation for International Women's Day. My name is Yvonne Lai. I'm a mother to 2 spirited young girls, a daughter and a sister who misses deeply all her family in Singapore, a colleague to the amazing team at the New Canadian Centre, and a treaty person in Nogojiwanong. Thank you to the organizing team at KWIC and KSAC for the opportunity to participate today. Happy International Women's Day. The first International Women's Day was observed on March 19, 1911 in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. In the years that followed, other countries began to observe and celebrate this day. The United Nations recognized 1975 as International Women's Year and began celebrating International Women's Day on March the 8th. I wanted to look up the UN theme for this year. The UN theme for this year's International Women's Day is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. This underscores the fact that women bear a disproportionate burden of the impacts of the climate crisis and that they need to be central to the solutions for a sustainable planet. Women all around the world and locally are leading innovations towards sustainability. Yet we know that progress on gender equality has been significantly stunted and even turned around with the pandemic. In the first 2 months of the pandemic, 1.5 million women in Canada lost their jobs. Canadian women between 25 and 54 lost jobs at twice the rate of men in the same age range. In the hardest hit industries of accommodation and food services, women accounted for 65% of the job losses, and the corresponding impact on poverty and violence is disheartening, while women continue to do the vast majority of the world's unpaid but essential care work. Our panel today will speak to the priority of leaving no one behind as we forge ahead and learn what core teachings we can take from Indigenous leadership. Following the panel, there will be a short break of 15 minutes before we reconvene for an open discussion period. And I hope that you will dive in to share your thoughts and questions with our panelists and other participants. Our first speaker today is Shaylin Wabagije, who will share about KWIC's Gender Equality Project and its guiding principles, Indigenous leadership, and leaving no one behind. Shaylin is an Algonquin Anishinaabe Caribou clan and is the program and outreach coordinator for the Kawartha World Issues Centre. From March 2021 to 2022, she's also the coordinator for the project Advancing Gender Equality in Nogojiwanong, Peterborough. Shaylin?
Ani bonjour everyone. Shaylin Wabagije Kondishnakas. Nanode Wisawin Tmiskaming Donjaba, Ata Kindodem, Minjikaning in Donjaba, Mima Nogojiwanong Ndada. So I said in my language, Anishinaabemowin, that my name is Shaylin Wabagije. My family is from Tmiskaming First Nation. I'm Caribou Clan. I grew up in Rama First Nation, and I currently live in Nogojiwanong, Peterborough. I'm also German and Irish, so acknowledging that and my privileges that come with that. Thank you everyone for being here, joining us in this event this evening, and thank you to everyone who made this event possible. I appreciate you all and wish you a happy International Women's Day. So I'm going to get started here with my presentation. All right, here we are. So I am coming to you from Nogojiwanong, which means place at the end of the rapids. And this is Michisagi Anishinaabe territory, and I'm so grateful for them. And I am a treaty person, as we all are in Nogojiwanong, through the Williams Treaties and Treaty 20. And I encourage you to learn more about that. There's some really good resources on those treaties from the community themselves. And this is just a photo of Haroldtown Conservation Area near where I live. So honoring the land, the waters, and the air where we live that give us life every day. I'm also KWIC's program and outreach coordinator. And I am also the project coordinator for the project Advancing Gender Equality in Nogojiwanong, Peterborough. So this was led by KWIC from March 2021 to 2022. As was mentioned earlier, it's funded by the Community Foundation of Greater Peterborough through the Government of Canada's Equality Fund. A little bit about KWIC, if you don't know us, we connect people to global issues and local initiatives that challenge how we understand the world and foster equitable and sustainable communities. So we're a charitable nonprofit based in Nogojiwanong and the Kawartha area. We serve the Kawartha area as well since 1989. This is a photo of us there, and you can find us in the Trent Environment Center. We just renovated our resource center. It's now called the KWIC Center for Environment, Youth, and Education. So the main outcomes of our project was to directly engage 60 people in 6 workshop conversations that explored the state of gender equality and envisioned how it can be advanced locally. We also compiled an inventory of gender equality supports and services locally that will contribute to the Equal Futures Network map. So this is a virtual interactive map of all the organizations that are doing work towards gender equality across the country. The final project report will be available at the end of March, and also the vital signs report was now published today. So Miigwetch, Jen, for speaking to that. So if you don't know about the SDGs, I just wanted to give a brief overview that they were created by the UN, the United Nations in 2015, as a global framework to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. All the SDGs, the 17 SDGs you can see in the bottom there, are interconnected and must be implemented based on the national and local contexts where we're implementing them. And SDG 5 supports the advancement of all other SDGs due to their interconnected nature. And the principle of leaving no one behind was created by the UN and is at the heart of the SDGs and our project, which also centers Indigenous leadership as the original sustainability and path forward. And we did this with the workshop. So we started out with Indigenous leaders in the community and engaging Indigenous women in the second workshop. So I'll get into that a little bit more. But this concept of leaving no one behind, this principle that's at the heart of the SDGs is these 5 different compounding factors that they identified, and people who are at the center of all of these factors who face disadvantage and deprivation because each one of these makes them the furthest left behind if they're affected by all of them. And intersectionality is an emerging principle that led the project. So this term was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, and it's the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. And I also want to add that they also different systems of privilege and advantage. I should have added that into the slide, excuse me. So Sustainable Development Goal 5 is gender equality, and the UN defines it as achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. But locally, we add that we must include gender diversity and intersectionality in this work. Inclusive gender equality is when people of all genders are free from discrimination and prejudice and are empowered to enjoy equal human rights, responsibilities, and opportunities. Harmful gender roles and stereotypes affect everyone, and gender inequalities persist in societies everywhere and stagnates social progress. Lack of representation continues at all levels of leadership and decision-making. However, many people are already breaking barriers and rejecting limited gender beliefs, many folks who are on this call right now. So to achieve gender equality, we must empower all peoples facing oppression because of their gender and remove the legal, social, and economic barriers to their empowerment. So the intersectional gender equality workshops engage diverse groups of people in 6 different workshop conversations, as you can see in the little bubbles there. To discuss their experiences and perspectives on gender equality. So the project was led by a steering team of gender equality advocates in the community, and they guided the whole project, advised the focus of each workshop and which organizations to partner with. And those organizations serve the populations that we aim to engage. And they supported the recruitment of workshop participants, and many partners even attended the workshops themselves. And we aim to amplify their voices, the voices of the participants, to inform the community on what is needed to advance gender equality on a local level. So the structure, just to give you an idea, this is just in general. We changed the workshop slightly as we went through each workshop to improve it based upon the feedback that we got from participants. But each workshop generally had 6 to 10 participants, and they gathered virtually on Zoom for 2.5 hours. So we had a context setting presentation to orient the participants at the beginning. We started with an introduction circle with an icebreaker question. And then we had 20 minutes to discuss each of the following questions that you see there. We also had 10-minute presentations, both on the national context of gender equality and the global context. And that as it applied to each focus of the workshop. So in a 10-minute presentation, it's hard to talk about the whole national context, but we made it relevant to the people that we were engaging in the workshop. So then we closed with some next steps and a closing circle to share reflections and debrief. So they went really well. I'm very impressed with everyone who joined those workshops. And I just say, Miigwetch, thank you so much to everyone for their time and their energy and their courage to share all that they did. So some emerging themes is that came out of the workshops that's going to be presented in the final report. I just came up with these, so they might look different in the report, but yeah, participants reported feeling unsafe or unsupported in various community spaces and accessing public services because discrimination towards them based on their gender identities and their intersecting identities. They experienced situations and that other participants also experienced, and other participants understood their experiences because they share similar identities. So they appreciated being around their peers to share those stories. And also they shared how grateful they were to connect with people like them and discuss these important issues, especially within the social isolation of the pandemic. And they acknowledged the importance of the safer space to have these discussions and reported it helped them to know that others like them are experiencing the same things locally. And they appreciated that the facilitators were there to listen to them and that everyone had something important to say and were equally valued. Then finally, they appreciated they were compensated for their time fairly and equitably, and that their stories will be heard from leaders and decision makers to make a difference and a change in the community locally. So in closing time, this is a photo of some of the core Gender Equality Project staff. I just want to say, Miigwetch, thank you so much to all the staff and everyone who made this project a reality. And Miigwetch, everyone, for listening to my presentation. And we will also share some links if you want to learn more about the Sustainable Development Goals, the Equal Futures Network map that Erin will be talking about a little bit later, and the Gender Equality Project webpage, where you will find the Vital Signs Report, a podcast that we created on gender equality based on this project, thanks to Sarah Lewis, and the final report will be available there as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shaylin. It was indeed a privilege to be part of one of those groups, to hear those, to hear the words of the women who shared them, and I'm really looking forward to reading the final report. Our second speaker is William Ward. Will is a Black, trans, and non-binary settler here in Nogojiwanong. They do advocacy work in K-12 education systems, trying to dismantle barriers to accountability. Will is leading a couple of ongoing projects like the Equity Index in Nogojiwanong and a nationwide Black Art Archive in conjunction with the Canadian Federation of Students Black Caucus. Will speak about how their Gender Equity Index project can advance gender equality and how people are impacted differently based on their intersectional identities. Will.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be able to talk about this, and I wanted to start I benefit most days from a lot of male privilege in society, and passing privilege specifically, which is a term that is used when a trans person isn't, I guess, clocked as a trans person within society, and thus benefits from all the privileges that a cisgender person would. And a little bit about myself. I was born in Mississauga to my mom, who's from Quebec, and my dad, who's from Barbados. and so being mixed, I didn't look like anyone in my family, um, like just with skin. And so talking about gender, um, I was huge into sports when I was young, so I was called a tomboy, and other names particularly that were used within um, the Caribbean culture. Um, and when I was 9, I moved to Nogojiwanong. Um, and over the years, I continued to play sports then, and I accumulated a couple concussions over the years, and I it was always ambiguous to the reason why. It could have been of race, or it could have been ambiguous gender. It was never, I don't know, told to me. And I think that highlights a particular point on intersectionality, on how you never know particularly which piece it is that is the thing people are picking on. I'm currently training to become a personal support worker, and I'm on an accelerated program, and it's taking up most of my days. So I put this particular project on pause for now, but I'm always looking for more partners or people who would like to cooperate with me on this. But I will be talking about the Equity Index, which is a form, hopefully, of accountability that is fluid with time and rooted, individualized, and localized with people. Um, because how do you measure a construct or a word on wheels, such as gender? It requires a certain long-term memory and a timeline, basically, of what has historically been happening, and a communal output of what has happened and the standard of care that is to be expected for everybody. Um, so this would look like giving a grade based on a spectrum on open access materials that different organizations or institutions have, such based on the presence or omission of policies that are there to keep people safe, and accountability measures that are accessible and efficient. And does a person or an institution or anybody know if you're leaving somebody behind if you don't have a feedback system? So having that reflexive communication input, I think, is what communal care is all about. But beyond all those, like, I don't know, technical things, I I like to talk about um, people and social connections, um, just as ecosystems, um, because we're all interwoven. All of our experiences are interwoven within ourselves. And so this idea of sustainability, having a system work for all people in a sustainable fashion, um, focuses on a lot of different areas. So we have psychological well-being, we have health, we have education, we have cultural diversity, and really pushing the fact of um, until we can get to a space where we can all be, um, it wouldn't be fighting for freedom. It would just be passing the baton that is privilege. And I think historically that has been seen within any movement, but um, I think everybody in their own way is in need and in a want for loving and healing um, from this work. And everybody is needing and wanting to grow their paradigms um, from this binary thing called femininity and masculinity. Because when one truly focuses in on it, there's there's so many crossovers. Like you can't have one within just one category, and having that multiplicity of thought, I think, is a social revolution that I'm glad that we're all on. And I think that's all I have for today. But yes.
Thank you very much for sharing your reflections, Will. I think when you graduate from your program, that people that you work with will benefit from your thoughtfulness and your sensitive nature. So hope you get to that goal very soon. So our third speaker for today is Erin Jex. So as you saw from the Eventbrite, there has been a change in speakers at the last minute. Erin Jex is also from CanWatch, the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health. She is the Gender Equality Coordinator there. Erin is responsible for helping to create, launch, and administer the delivery of programming to highlight Canadians' work on gender equality. She will share best practices globally and advancing gender equality and what we can be doing better. Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Yvonne, and it's wonderful to have been invited to this event by KWIC and KSAC, and also to share the virtual stage with Shaylin and Will. Thank you very much for having me. I just want to place myself a little bit in terms of where I am joining you from virtually. So I'm joining you tonight from the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Mississauga, and Wandaka and Nuansoto peoples, which is just slightly south of Peterborough on settler maps known as Port Hope. So I am joining you from there, where I have the privilege of raising my family and learning and living on the land here. So tonight, I am joining on behalf of the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health, which is an organization built of about 100 non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, health professionals, associations, and also individuals who come together and partner to improve health outcomes for women and children in more than 1,000 communities worldwide. So as part of this work and advancing the health, right, and well-being of women, girls, and gender diverse people globally, we really do some work grounded in SDG 5, gender equality. So in terms of some of the global best practices that we have noticed over the course of, especially during the pandemic, kind of have been organized into 3 main buckets. So the first one being health. So as a global community, continuing to push for gender responsive health systems that uphold girls and women's and gender diverse individuals' essential rights to health throughout their lives. This is in particular addressing the neglected areas of sexual and reproductive health. So for example, things like comprehensive sexuality education, advocacy for abortion, and other things to that nature. These are paramount to strengthening health systems, to achieving safe, healthy, and functioning societies, and also to creating strong economic growth and development. Secondly, another trend that we're noticing globally is data-oriented solutions. So gender data holds the power to make the invisible visible and shed light on the disadvantages experienced by girls and women and other marginalized communities. It also helps to identify the underlying causes of inequality and measures outcomes and impacts. So one thing that we're noticing is really important is investing in the inclusion and collection of better age, sex, and racial disaggregated data. This will help it to be utilized to drive solutions that will improve policymaking, to improve gender transformative programming, and also other evidence-based innovations. And finally, the third bucket is within partnership. So really investing time and also funding in creating multi-sectoral partnerships and support systems that are there to ensure that core health, justice, economic, and social supports address root causes of violence and are responsive to the immediate and long-term needs of women and girls. So these three buckets, kind of in a global perspective, we're seeing as really important to help the advancement of SDG 5. So kind of the second part of the question is really, what can we do to achieve this in communities locally? So KWIC, as I said, is an organization that kind of focuses on the international. So organizations and membership kind of focuses on the international health perspective. So locally, I work particularly on an initiative called the Equal Futures Network that Shaylin alluded to in her presentation, which is kind of taking that global perspective and turning it inwards. So it is a collection of organizations, entities, projects, and programs that focus on advancing gender equality and social justice in communities across Canada. So part of the work that we do is to really work in deep partnership to bring together and make sure that organizations, from different sectors who work in different languages, as well as work on in different locations, are able to come to kind of one central area and really share the work that they're doing, share their innovations, brainstorm through problems together, but really to communicate the work that they're doing so that, what they're doing is not kind of lost in that echo chamber of where they're located. So an organization who is working on the East Coast is able to plug into work being done on the West Coast. And really just to kind of start to build those cross-sectoral partnerships that are really kind of paramount to advancing gender equality at a local level. So again, what can we do to better achieve this goal in our communities? Kind of the first thing that we have learned from doing this work is it needs to be grounded in partnership. So we need to take the lead from community members, in particular Indigenous, Black, other racialized, and 2S LGBTQ communities, as well as centering their needs to work in partnership to implement projects, programs, and policies. Secondly, working in community. The experts that are driving the progress for gender equality already exist, and they're already doing this work, and they're already leading at kind of the front lines and the grassroots of gender equity work across Canada. So we need to continue to break down silos that keep our work separate so that we can better learn from each other, to share best practices, and to really drive this work forward. And finally, we need collective action. The movement for gender equality in Canada is strong, but it is really under-resourced in many regions and communities. And we know that kind of at the forefront of working in the not-for-profit and frontline service provision world are women and gender diverse individuals. So COVID-19 has only compounded these challenges, and frontline service providers are really facing critical and immediate pressures. So as a community, we need to see substantive long-term resourcing so that this work can be undertaken in sustainable, substantive, and meaningful ways. So that's all I wanted to say on that kind of piece there. I'm going to drop the link for the Equal Futures Network in the chat there and welcome you to check it out. And, we have KWIC as a member and other kind of local organizations. So would love to see if we can kind of continue to build this partnership for organizations working to advance gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Your final point about listening to frontline service providers who've been doing this work for a long time and really taking that feedback into designing programs really resonates with me. Thank you for sharing your thoughts there. So my deep gratitude really to all our speakers today for sharing their insights on the important work that is happening around the work of gender equality, both locally and globally. I would like to wrap up this portion of our panel presentation here with some words from Bread and Roses. So this is a poem by James Oppenheimer that I first heard at the wonderful event that was Person's Day Breakfast in Nogojiwanong. And the appeal for bread and roses originated from American women's suffrage activist Helen Todd in 1911 and was really the call for both fair wages, bread, and dignified conditions, roses. So this is the last verse from the poem. As we come marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, tend that toil where one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses. So thank you for your attention during the panel presentation. I would like to invite you now to take, Zarina, is it a 15-minute break? Before we go on to the open space discussion, I'll hand the floor back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yvonne. And of course, thank you, Shaylin, Will, and Aaron. So I think we will be doing a 5-minute break. Shay, thumbs up? Okay, cool. Yeah, so 5-minute break. So we'll see everyone back at 7 p.m. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so welcome back everyone. Now we'll begin our question and answer period with the panelists, moderated by Yvonne. So feel free to unmute yourself. You can raise your hand using the reactions in the Zoom toolbar at the bottom. So if you raise your hand, you'll just join the queue and Yvonne will call on you as it becomes your turn. And I'll also be monitoring the chat for folks who prefer to type out questions and feedback. So Yvonne, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks very much, Serena. So I can only see a limited number of participants on my screen. If you are comfortable unmuting to audibly raise your hand, you're welcome to do that. You're also encouraged to put a question or a comment or a reflection in the chat if you would like to share with our participants today. Is there anyone who would like to start us off for this open panel discussion? Rosemary, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. We can hardly say Happy Women's Day, thinking globally, but we can say Good Women's Day. And I would just like all the panelists to comment on Ukraine. I haven't heard it mentioned yet, and we're an hour in. And I just feel that our hearts, I'm sure Aaron is the most experienced with that, with global dilemmas. But I would really like, since the refugees are largely women and children, and you see the solidarity from the Polish women and other women, it seems to me it's a really important feminist question for us to touch on. Thanks.
Thank you, Rosemary. Just before I logged on to the event today, the image that I saw on social media was of strollers being left at train stations in Poland. So definitely very heartbreaking situation. Would any of our panelists like to step forward to offer your reflections?
I appreciate the I guess mentioning of it, because I feel like oftentimes people shy away from talking about what is heavy on the heart, and I see like multiple ways of it. Particularly, I've been seeing people within intersections, either migrant students or workers who are Black and women or gender diverse people, having a harder time like getting out, being stopped at borders and checkpoints and things like that. And I think that top down, that is something that consistently happens. There's like a hierarchical slated measure of oppression. So those intersections and different weights on all of those are hard to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can go next if that's okay, Shaylin. Yes, Rosemary, thank you so much for bringing this up. I think it's something that's been weighing probably on everyone's minds and holding space in their hearts in the past couple of weeks. And I think, as you mentioned, just from KWIC's global perspective, just some of the things that we notice in terms of doing work in a global space, especially during refugee crises. just really you can see kind of a slip back, especially in terms of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and comprehensive sexuality education and things like that happening when there is a large global crisis. So just holding things like that at the forefront, and donating to organizations who are continuing to push for these things to still be delivered in refugee or crisis situations, I think is paramount right now, in addition to the aid that is just needed to go to Ukrainian support organizations as well. We can't forget about to us LGBTQ individuals with passports that aren't matching their identity, trying to flee from Ukraine. And we can't forget about, women menstruating, or women and gender diverse people menstruating in refugee camps and needing access to menstrual hygiene products. Like, those are some of the things that we also need to think about in a global crisis, is how just women, gender diverse, and racialized communities are affected that much more by what's going on, and how we can aid in those situations.
Thank you to my fellow panelists. I think you've said many of the things that I've been thinking about, and thank you, Rosemary, for the question. All I really have to add is that personally, I believe in, I have faith in the people who are doing that work to support them. And I personally haven't had much capacity, and I want to be honest about that, to support Ukraine. I know that KWIC has been sharing out information and trying to engage and educate the community on this issue. But I also want to acknowledge that it's okay to not have capacity and be able to support many issues when people are dealing with many things themselves as individuals, myself included. So yeah, my heart goes out. That's all I have to say. Miigwetch.
Thank you, Shay. I would say, from my perspective of the work at the New Canadian Centre too, that while this crisis is happening in Ukraine, the ripple effects on others who have been unfortunate victims of political and civil unrest in the countries where they've come from as well are also being re-traumatized. And it's a very unfortunate thing to be happening now, when a lot of our reserves are spent having dealt with the pandemic for the last 2 years. So a little kindness for everybody goes a really long way. We have a comment in the chat from Charmaine about an article about racism in Ukraine crisis. Thanks to Will for mentioning this. It's an MSN link if you would like to click onto that to read more. There's also a comment here from Robert Gibson, who is wondering if the participants in the panels can talk about gender neutral washrooms and the reversal of a proposed design last year. Robert, if you would like to elaborate a little bit more about this issue, you're welcome to unmute. Otherwise, I can pass this on to the panelists for their comment as well.
Yes, yeah. So I've been following City Council, and last year there was a proposal for a general neutral washroom at the sports and wellness facility, and it was originally approved and then backtracked. So I was hoping to hear comments on that, especially since the intersectionality of women and genders. Yeah.
Thank you for elaborating, Robert. Which of our panelists would like to answer to this comment?
There's always like a awkward silence of like, who's gonna go first? I heard about this, but I heard it like in after effect, but just from personal experience, like in school, having to walk, I don't know, half an hour during class in order to just, I don't know, complete one of the activities of daily living, I feel like shouldn't be ever a thing that anybody should have to go through. And the fact that oftentimes people don't think twice about these decisions in order to save money or I don't know, have a better, I don't know, support following. I don't know. But it just shows that there's not much relatability within whoever's representing me or whoever's making these decisions. Like, they haven't walked in my shoes. And I think that that feeling within itself is something that is really disheartening, but I gained a better community because I recognize that the pain that I feel is also felt by other people, and I feel a better closeness because it's like a diamond in the rough, the connection that I do have with my fellow trans and queer peoples who do have to like suffer through this in a very real way. Yeah.
Thank you, Will. Erin and Shay, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the specific kind of proposal happening in kind of the Peterborough region, I believe, as I'm not a resident. But I think kind of building on Will's point, just having that lens of intersectionality from a municipal and provincial level when kind of thinking about, bathrooms and accessibility needs and things like that, is an important lens to have in terms of gender neutral washrooms. I think that for people who are not, as Will said, kind of confronted with what that reality looks like, it's not something that's first and foremost in mind. But, when you're navigating life or navigating those situations, that's when you're confronted with them. So I think just in terms of how we should just be approaching things in general is really to try to do that from that really intersectional perspective of what does this look like with accessibility factored in? Like, what does this look like with a 2S LGBTQ lens factored in? What does this look like with a gendered lens factored in? And try to make all of our, to the extent possible, try to make decisions coming from that place of, it might not be understanding based on lived experience, but in an attempt to relate to other human beings who are living that experience.
Thank you, both Will, for your sharing your perspectives and experiences, and to Erin for your remarks as well. I just would like to add that yeah, this is a really important discussion that needs to be had in every community. And I think we need to be more compassionate and understanding and aware of these issues that affect people in real ways that harm people. And it's always about doing no harm. And I know the arguments for both sides, that people worry about the harms of having gender neutral bathrooms. But I believe that having this gender binary reinforced by washrooms is harmful to our entire society, because as Will mentioned, this concept of masculinity and femininity and man and woman, as there is so many layers to that, and so many people fall along the spectrum of gender binary. It's a spectrum, not a binary, is what I meant to say. So I think to advance gender equality, that it is really important to acknowledge that people fall in on that spectrum, and to be inclusive of that is a good thing. And of course, keeping people's safety in mind is always important. So, thank you.
Oh, can I add one thing, Yvonne? One thing that I'm really happy to see becoming more and more standard practice is the inclusion of menstrual hygiene products in all bathrooms. So I think that as we take steps kind of moving forward, that type of inclusionary lens and, you know, including menstrual hygiene products, even with binary bathrooms, including them in both, is a really good step towards kind of getting us on the pathway to exclusively gender neutral washrooms, but just that, you know, that step towards thinking about menstrual hygiene as not a binary experience that happens to women only, I think is a really positive step forward in kind of this whole conversation.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, panelists, for your reflections. There's a comment in the chat from Lynn clarifying that it was about the change rooms at the Wellness Center, and that she's proposing that they be everyone washrooms that are accessible to everyone, gender neutral. There's also a link about this issue that Charmaine has shared, if you would like to click through on that. Jim, you had raised your hand. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, thank you very much, sister. I'd like to reflect on something that has been very important to me for many years. We are hopefully coming out of a pandemic area where employment will come back up, and well, let's hope things work out. Work has been done over the years by many organizations, unions like I work for, about getting equality in hiring and so on in the workplace. Something to watch for is the re-emergence of General Motors in Oshawa. Now, it's not the same size as it used to be, 20,000 and so on, but it is emerging from kind of a semi-dormant era, and they're now hiring on new staff. Equal opportunity there is perfect. Now, I don't give General Motors any great credit for it because having dealt with them for a long, long time, they don't do anything unless they're pushed. They were pushed, and now they're hiring for the reopening, re-emergence on an equal basis. I don't know if this has been part of any of the work of the panel. This is an opportunity, I believe, that we should watch carefully and hopefully can emulate it in many, many other areas, because even though we had so much closure during the pandemic and layoffs, which I believe affected women more than men, especially in the service industry. When we come out of this, there will be good, well-paying jobs, hopefully, like a GM and Oshawa coming up out of the shadows. It's an opportunity if we follow it closely. I think it can be, again, replicated in many areas. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Jim. So if you're following along on the chat, there are also comments from Rosemary about the presence of women in the negotiating teams related to the Ukrainian conflict, and an uneasiness about building up of armaments and giving them to young Ukrainians. Also a comment from Margie about cubicles being available for those who prefer some privacy in the change room. Would anyone on the panel like to add to Jim's points that he raised? Erin?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to. I think it's a really great step forward to have the equal opportunity present in the workforce, but I think really what we need to also take a look at is the systemic issues that actually prevent equal opportunity from being effective or being better, more effective. So for example, during the pandemic, as women are generally the responsible people for the care economy and taking care of their families and their parents, we saw a mass exodus of women from the workforce. So something systemically needs to be addressed, because they're not going to be able to come back. They're going to enter the workforce from a lower economic standpoint in terms of the money that they're going to be earning over time, because they've taken a 2 or 3 year gap to raise their children, to get them through homeschooling during the pandemic and things like that. So I think that there needs to be a really holistic conversation and kind of integration from policymakers and programs that really take a look at the experience of women as a whole in terms of what it looks like in the workforce, because it's not just, hey, here's an opportunity. And I think this is the same to be said for also racialized communities, Indigenous communities, 2S LGBTQ communities. When there's an opportunity, there are still hurdles that prevent people from being able to seize that opportunity in the same way. And I think, speaking to the pandemic, just seeing the amount of women who had to leave the workforce and realistically will not be back has really set us back in terms of achieving gender equity and pay equity in the coming years.
Thank you, Erin. Calling upon Sam to ask your question.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed the panelists and your talk before the break, and answering the questions today have been really great. I want to, turn my attention to kind of thinking about hope and joy. So I'm wondering, over the past year or couple of years, what in your work or maybe in your personal kind of feminist life and being has brought you the most hope or joy?
I can start on this one. What brought me the most joy, especially in the pandemic, has been connecting with everyone that I've connected with for this project. Connecting with organizations and the people who work for those organizations who are doing amazing work. Will, who supported me in facilitating these workshops, and to all the participants and the discussions that we had, and how incredible it has been to coordinate that project. So that's what's brought me the most hope and the most joy. Although, there's heavy topics, I just find a lot of joy in shedding light on them so that we can address them and create that positive change we really need to see.
I love that question. Joy. Oh my goodness. I love talking about joy because I feel like it's all encompassing. And yeah, I think my peeps, my people, the people that resonate with me, through, I don't know how to even explain, like, it's still that same diamond in the rough feeling of, you can resonate with somebody from feeling the same pain and experience a greater joy from that. And I feel like that's the most beautiful thing. And also, I think growing an empathy for people in my life who I believe have either paradigms that have harmed me, and trying to grow an empathy for how hurtful it may be to walk about a life where you cut people out or you diminish them without even knowing how awesome of a person they are. And the pain that that must be for them of not even knowing so many amazing people just from that one, I don't know, thought, that one prejudice bias. I tried to think of that and tried to grow that empathy into joy while speaking to other people. And I think that that has been the most monumental thing, particularly through the pandemic for me, because I've been having a lot of conversations and harder conversations, because I've gained a new confidence over Zoom. Yeah, Erin, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think just through my professional life, finding ways to engage with new communities and, building community in a different way has been, a really joyful experience. The Equal Futures Network launched just over a year ago, so really in the middle of a pandemic, and just being able to engage with grassroots community organizations who are really leading the social justice and gender equity movements in their communities has been such a heartening experience. And getting to meet and connect with people like Shay and Will, and all of that wonderful stuff over Zoom. I'm thankful for that, and thankful for the technology that has allowed us to be together through something like this. And yeah, just super thankful for community, and being able to build community through the pandemic.
Thank you very much for sharing. We'll have one more question before we reach the end of this open space discussion, but I do see many allies in the room who have been doing this important work for many, many years, and I would invite you to share with everyone else in the room what you have been up to, sharing your stories of hope, your stories of joy, your inspiring words, to everyone else as we move towards the next segment. I did want to acknowledge Cheryl Lyon's comment about raising, yes, my dog is here, awareness across all groups of the inequitable impacts of the climate change crisis. Mostly these impacts are addressed as being most severe in the global south, but I must admit we must localize our understanding of how women, children, and all people living in economic poverty and those living in food and farming and domestic service. Thank you for sharing, Cheryl. And I think I hear this gives me joy, $10 a day daycare. When that actually happens, Jennifer, that will be a joyful day. So I think the question that we will wrap up our presentation with at this point comes from Jocelyn. Jocelyn would love to see women and gender diverse folks in leadership roles that represent the leaders I see every day in this community. Can the panel please speak to the importance of that diverse representation in leadership positions?
I can start. Yes, Miigwetch for this question, Jocelyn. Yeah, that's such an important topic, and I touched upon it really briefly in my presentation. That's what we heard from a lot of the folks who we engaged in those workshops, and that's just such an important thing in society in general, is to have people that look like you, that you can put yourself in their shoes, that represent the communities where you come from. So to me, like, that's the importance of Indigenous leadership. As a Anishinaabe, seeing Indigenous women in leadership helps me and has helped me be the person who I am today. My mom, shout out to my mom and my grandmother and all the strong Indigenous and just strong women in general who have paved the way for me to be able to be as confident as I am, to take on the world, to believe that I can make a change and that my voice matters. And that's what diverse representation in leadership and decision making is about. Yeah, knowing that you matter and that your voice matters and your community's voice is important. And also, as what was alluded to earlier, just the fact that people who are making decisions on behalf of diverse group of people should have that lived experience of who they are making decisions for, on behalf of. Like, we need to appoint people that can relate to us, as Kemi said, that can, oh, I forget what she said, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's so important to have people who understand the situation from that deeper level. Miigwetch.
Yeah, I agree completely, Shay. I think in the global health community, the phrase "nothing about us without us" really resonates in terms of needing that diverse representation in leadership positions. Because, as you said, making policies and programs about diverse community members without that lived experience, you're not going to get to the root cause of the inequity without having those voices represented at that table. And I, shout out to some of the incredible Canadian organizations like the Black Women of Color Leadership Network, who do that work to mentor young Black women to get to those positions of leadership so that we can really see substantive change being made kind of at a board level, a CEO level, because I think from a domestic perspective, that is something we're lacking, and really looking forward to seeing that change in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's all said. Like, um, I think it's um, hard to always have that consistent imagination of what it would be like to see a leader that would look like me, or see a leader that talks like me, or um, see a leader that, based upon any of their uh, overcrossing intersection, hasn't been the box that was left out the door. Because I think that a lot of people, too many, um, have to leave one of their bags, a piece of them, at the door. Um, and having that, I don't know, freedom to express who you are in a leadership position is a communal acceptance of that person, and a communal acceptance of those intersections by default. And I think that's like exciting, and like brings me energy to think about, because it, for somebody who hasn't seen that, I feel like that energy is the thing that gives them life. Um, and that's like where hope comes from. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much, panelists. We actually have one more hand that was raised that I would like to call upon Amarpreet Kaur to speak.
Hi. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak or ask a question. Thank you to the panelists for all of your reflections. I'm just sitting here with my kids actually watching. They're 7 and 9 years old. So some of them got to hear your reflections. And as we were talking about leadership, I wanted to ask, what do you think, what is one, if you were to give an advice on, a person of color, a woman of color to engage in leadership activities, there's many barriers that may, some subtle, some not so subtle, that they may have to cross to enter into those roles. What advice would you give them? And I've got a little 7-year-old person who identifies as a girl listening as well. So is there anything that you'd like to offer, given the roles that you have in your current jobs and volunteer, spaces that you occupy?
Yeah, Miigwetch, thank you for the question. I'll keep my remarks brief, but I would like to say that don't let anyone hold you back, and believe in yourself and take up that space. Use your voice. Your voice is so important, and your experiences and perspectives should be heard. Your stories should be heard, your beliefs. So yeah, have courage and humility, and go after it. Go after whatever you want to achieve.
I I think all I could say is just like Shay says, trust yourself, and just as much listen, I think, also, because listening to those elders that came before you, they can save you from a lot of possible ruts, and yeah, but most of all, trust yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And as someone who also is raising a daughter, it's something I think about often, about her navigating the space that she will occupy in the world when she grows up. So, one thing that I have always found super helpful is just finding that mentor. And as Will has said, listening to those lessons and really, finding the opportunities to share who you are throughout everything that you do. Try not to leave your bags at the door. Try to bring your whole self into everything that you do, because I think that in particular is going to show you as a whole person and really bring forth all of the strengths that you have, and can help turn perceived weakness into strength as well. So really, like, finding that mentor, finding those, and mentors can be anything. They can be sisters, mothers, your executive director in your organization. Like, mentorship does not have to be that high level, that piece, but really just people you admire, and listening to their lessons and listening to the things that they have to share with you, and trying to bring that through in all of the work that you do.
Thank you, panelists. And in the chat, Serena says, seek advocacy, education, and find those people who align with your goals and experience. So as we wrap up the panel discussion here, I would also encourage the adults in the room to find the young people in your lives and to engage them in conversations that open them to the possibilities. I wanted to share, if you will indulge me, a poster that my 6-year-old made for today to end off the presentation. I don't know if you could see. It says "Girl Power." And I'll hand the floor back to Zarina.
Thank you. Oh, I love that. Thank you for bringing artwork into this event. Yeah, I wanted to extend that thank you as well to Shaylin, Will, and Erin, and everyone for bringing your thoughtful questions into the discussion today. So as we near the end of our event together, I would like to welcome Sarah Lewis, Peterborough's Poet Laureate, to the virtual stage for a special performance. So whenever you're ready, Sarah, the mic is yours.
Wow, Miigwetch, everyone, that was so much to take in, and I took a lot from that. I was also note-taking as well, so my hands are really tired. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to work at KWIC and to get a look into the workshops that my team members have been participating in, facilitating, organizing, and it's such amazing work. Like, very grateful, yeah, to support in any way that I can, and also very happy to share a poem with everyone tonight. So this poem is called Divine Woman, and I wrote it specifically in honor of all the women. I usually write about, Indigenous women or my lived experiences and the women in my own life, but there are so many amazing women in the community, and this poem is for all of the women. Divine woman, rest your weary eyes and worries, set them aside, woman. For an older version of yourself to worry about, you are welcome to step off the pedestal they have placed you on. Breathe. Release the tension in your shoulders, neck, back. The battles will always be there, so unclench your fists and place hands into prayer pose. And thank yourself for how hard you have worked to get here, to this moment. Divine woman, my kind of woman, working so hard to love herself after decades of unsolicited advice, woman who is called every objectifying name in the book but returns the book to its owner, has never been much of a fiction reader, woman Divine woman, beautiful mind, woman, not a forget-me-not, but a woman you remember. She is the whole fire, not just the embers kind of woman. Loud woman, not a fembot, plot, twist, and bend for you fantasy, living to appease the male gaze, lying naked underneath willow tree, docile, sweet, submissive, whispering, never yelling, cooking, never burning bridges, expected to do it all woman. But she doesn't feel full off these capitalist calories. She has a hunger for community, for connection, was born in a system that fed her lies. She is a more than enough woman. They gave her a manual on how to be a good, real woman, yet they want to pluck and wax off all her realness, put her on a diet, tone her voice down, but she knows she's a goddess, and no goddess would dare remove parts of herself, make herself less. Her body's cells are derived from pre-colonial contact, cannot be owned or told what to do. Her parts are not a reference point for abuse or patriarchal profit. She's a prophet of poetry, of self-love, of raging against the system that covers her breast as if it exposed its secrets, makes them uncomfortable. Seeing it in a baby's mouth, but not if it's wrapped in Victoria's Secret. Divine woman knows that to heal from the patriarchal melting pot is to get out of the pot, is to stir the pot, knows that it is not enough to say sorry or not all men. It is to unlearn sexism rooted in colonialism, is to provide reparations, is to love our women, to respect all women. That's trans women, gay women, straight women, fat women, skinny women, loud women, quiet women, masculine women, sexual women, asexual women, not your women, Black women, Indigenous women. To acknowledge your existence is because of women. This is for the women who want to have kids, the women who don't, the married women, the women who won't, the poly women, working moms, moms that don't work, the women who wear makeup, and the ones that have made up their minds that their freckles are too fine to cover. Not hard to find woman, because she's listening to this poem right now. I see you, divine woman. And so please stop placing her on a pedestal. She will always desecrate it, set it to flame. She exists to exist and doesn't need to make it pretty. She isn't merely a vibe, but a whole frequency that radiates love, womanhood, and divinity. Thank you.
Woo! Every time. I see you, divine woman. Thank you so much, Sarah. Of course, your powerful medicine, as always, and your energy and performance. They always leave me in awe and like chills down my spine. So as we close our space in a good way, please join me in welcoming Elder Phyllis Williams to the mic for our closing prayer.
Wow, I'm all pumped up now with Sarah's poetry. Miigwetch, Sarah. Wapshke makwakwa indigenous Ashi mong dojaba Kiko and Dode. My spirit name is White Bear Woman. I was given that name from an elder in Garden River First Nation. I'm of the Fish Clan, and I reside in Curve Lake First Nation. However, I do have a second home in Alderville First Nation where I work. I'm the manager of Health and Social Services currently right here in this First Nation. I want to say Miigwetch to Janet for bringing the drum and the song to us. Always helps us to ground us and inspire us right away, knowing our place. Chief Carr for her message, land acknowledgement, and encouragement that she always delivers. Today, we honor all women of the world. We'll pray for the women and the children fleeing from the disturbances of Ukraine. I am so very proud of some of the work that we are doing here. Always in these gatherings, there are many lights that shine for those people who are contributing. I want to commend Shaylin and her team who always work extremely hard to bring awareness, especially on this topic of gender equality. And let's be real, we have recent traumas that have been profiled, and namely missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, the residential school burial sites that have been found. So if you can reflect on those very points, only those 2 points, the women who have suffered the ordeals of those traumas. So let us remember there are many women and families who are still suffering in this world. In spite of Canada's history with Indigenous people, with our Indigenous peoples, we have learned to use our voice and to know our place to do the work that needs to be done for a future without hurt, without stress, without shame, and without abuses. We are resilient. We are all resilient. And we are all brothers and sisters. We hold each other up at every challenge. So I wanted to give those specific messages before I lead you into prayer. And I want to express how very much I appreciate being here tonight to share the words and share the knowledge, to share our friendship, our knowing of what we're celebrating today. And hopefully that celebration will continue. So if I may, I'd like to offer prayer and closing. Miigwetch zemni dog avishaima, Miigwetch ekandma, Poshteshinga gashagnashi. I've asked the Creator that I speak the English language, my second language. I pray for this world. I pray for all the women who have given of themselves to everything in life, to the children, to the families, to the caregiving that they give their parents, their grandparents. I want to say Miigwetch for all the people I have come to know, the strong women, the women who lead. I pray for those men folk who hold up the women and always encourage and help them understand the other things that may not be understood, especially by women. We embrace those times that we can think about what we've had in this world. The Creator and you, Creator, have given us Miigwetch to Mother Earth and all that has given to us that in those ways. We thank you for the animal life, the plant life, the sky world, the beings underneath the earth. And we pray for the earth, and that we continue to help one another, to make sure that we're doing the right thing to sustain this earth that we have come to know. Miigwetch for the water, the beautiful water we have in this area, the beautiful Kawartha lakes. We pray for the rivers and all the water that helps sustain us, that gives us that life. We pray for the fire, the wind, and the air that we breathe each day. And sometimes we don't remember to give that thanks each and every day. Miigwetch, Creator, for the people who always give us encouragement and support, the ones that are always there for us when we are in a place that we find hard to be in. We always lean on them, and we always look to them to give us those words and that kindness and that respect that we need, that love and sharing, the caring. we hope, Creator, that we are beyond this illness that has devastated us again throughout the world. And we know that we can come through this. We have come a long, long way. And soon we will be out of it, and soon we can enjoy those things that you have given us, the beauty, the nature, the water, the plant life, the medicines that we can gather again. There's so much I can be thankful for tonight, but we don't, we can save that for some other time. And if I have forgotten anything or anyone, please forgive me. But tonight we're saying we are so grateful for the group that we have met with tonight, and those who couldn't be here, we also pray for them, because there are reasons that they can't be with us, be it illness, be it if it's somewhere they can't help themselves, or places that they're recovering. We always think of those people that are struggling. So Creator, we thank you, and we can't thank you enough for all that you have given us, and say Miigwetch, and let us all rest and give thanks again tomorrow. Miigwetch, Miigwetch.
Miigwetch, Elder Phyllis. I really appreciated your powerful words honoring missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, as well as Two-Spirit and trans Indigenous peoples. So thank you for your closing prayer and for sending us beautiful blessings as we go on our way for the evening. I did just want to remind folks that the KSAC support line is available 24/7, and that's just been posted in the chat. So that wraps up our event for tonight. I wanted to extend a huge thank you to all of our special guests, Janet, Chief Carr, City Councillor Kemi, Jennifer, Yvonne, Jalen, Will, Aaron, Sarah, and Elder Phyllis, as well as Councillor Kim Zippel, who went live yesterday for the reading of the International Women's Day 2022 proclamation with the KSAC team, Lucas and Jocelyn. And many thanks go out to our support team, Margaret, Jocelyn, and Katie, and Stephanie, and to everyone who helped us put on another incredible International Women's Day in Nogojiwanong, Peterborough, all of the community partners and sponsors that made tonight possible. Y'all did an amazing job, and of course, all of you in the audience today who joined us in celebrating this special occasion. Thank you so much. On behalf of our International Women's Day 2022 Planning Committee, have a blessed International Women's Day and International Women's History Month. Have a great night, and I hope we will see each other soon.
Thanks everyone for the beautiful evening. Take good care.